Now I've set the Raspberry Pi back to Powell.local, so I reset the host name to be Powell, and when I scan with Angry IP, I come down here and I see that that same IP address is labeled Powell.local now instead of Octopi.local. So I know that I'm still on that IP address and I need to go change my IP address to a static IP somewhere up here in the 20 range so that it matches what you guys will be having. So go ahead and get out of Angry IP for now. We'll go back and rescan later after we do this next part. But what we're going to do is open Chrome, and we need to open our secure shell, and we will log in. Now, even though I changed my host name to Powell, is still recognized as Pi at the same IP address. So I'm just going to make sure it says 192.168.1.100, which is the one that I have right now, and connect. It comes up and asks for the password, so I'll just type in Raspberry again, enter, and that logs me in. And now down here I see that I have Pi at Powell instead of Powell.local. All right, so now we get to the part where you got to pay pretty close attention, because if you do this wrong, you'll have to reformat your card and start all this over again. So in order to set this as a static IP, that is what we're going to do next. So I get into my terminal here and I type in sudo space nano space / etc / dhcp cd.conf. That gets us into the config file. So I'll hit enter. It'll ask for my password. So that again is Raspberry. And here it is. I'm going to hit the page down button once. This is what you're going to see when you get to that bottom window. Now this area right here is the area that we would change if we were hooking a hard wire up to it. Like if I were plugging my Pi right in directly to its Ethernet port. This is the example wired, so I'm going to tab over here or arrow over and type wired static IP configuration. Now, since I'm not doing wired, I want to copy this section. I'm going to paste it down here at the bottom and reset it so that it'll work with my wireless. So I'm going to use my mouse and highlight this, and when I do that, I get a little copied symbol there. And then if I click down here, or tab, I guess I got to arrow down to the area that I want this to be, and right click, it'll paste that same code down here, and I'm going to change it to say wireless. Whoops, I have to move my little doodad up here. Sorry, cursor over. So wherever that red thing is, it's kind of archaic, but that's how we got to do it. Wireless static IP configuration. And the only difference is instead of ETH0, which would be Ethernet 0, we're going to type whoops, got to do it again. And delete that. Wow, this is all kinds of fun. And type WLAN 0. That means wireless local area network 0. Now you see that we have hashtags in front of these. This is what we have to change for it to be able to have the static IP. So I need to know what static IP address I want. So you're going to have to come get that from me before you do this. In fact, it may be that I have to do this. I'm not sure you guys will be able to, but we'll give it a try. Not because you can't, just because the school won't allow. So I'm going to scroll down and hit delete and get rid of those hashtags in front of the first two. I'm going to skip the IP6 and delete the hashtag in front of the next two. So you see those become more bright, which means that they're now enabled. I've already changed the wireless LAN 0, but now I need to change it to my static IP address. So I know that 20 is open from looking at Angry IP, and that's within my IP address range for our Pis. So I've set that at 192.168.120, and then /24 is just something it needs to know that it's a home type network. So we'll leave that. All right, then our static router is going to be our router gateway IP address. So I'm going to tab up to that, not tab, but arrow over. And I know from looking this up, and you just need to know this, that that's a 1.1. And the one down here will be the same thing. So we're going to move that one over and change it to 1 as well. And this area here would be where you would need to have something put in here if you're going to try to access the internet. So this would be something you would want to leave in at home, but here it's not going to make any difference. So just make sure they're set up like this. And then we're ready to get out of this and go give it a try. So if all goes well, we're going to have a static IP address when we look at Angry IP of 1.20 here. So this is kind of cumbersome to get out of as well. So we're going to hit Control O, and that's going to ask if we want to save it, and we hit Enter to save it. And then we're going to hit Control X to get out of it. Okay, now at this point, we got to reboot the Pi so that it can see that static IP address. So we're going to hit sudo reboot. We'll type that and hit enter. Okay, and then you see that we lose our connection to the Pi as it reboots itself. So I'm just going to hit C to choose another connection. That's going to bring me back up to this window. And this time I need to change, I leave Pi as my host name, my username, but I'm going to change this to 20. And once the Pi boots, it should recognize that it's been changed to a static IP. And I think we're getting close. I'm watching the lights on my Pi. I'll hit enter. That comes up, ask for the password, so we'll type Raspberry again, enter, and it booted me in as Pi at Powell. And I believe right up here it says Pi at 198.1.2.20. Okay, so that sees that we have that, but I want to go show you in Angry IP as well. So I'll minimize this for a second. We'll go to Angry IP. In fact, we'll minimize that. Open our Angry IP, and we hit start. So we have a blank spot here at 20. So it's trying to detect what device that is. And in a minute, it will fill that in, and it should say powell.local, which it does right there. That's our host name that we changed it to. It's local, and now it's been assigned the static IP of 1.20. So I will always know that that's my IP with my host and username. Now, if you were doing this with access to the internet, you would be able to type powell.local into your URL, into your search bar in Octoprint, and it would just bring up your Pi because it would know that was your IP address. So we're going to go ahead and minimize that one for a minute. So we know that now we've got a static IP and we've changed the host name, which is what we needed to do. So go through that carefully and slowly, and everything ought to be happy for you. If not, you may have to start over or come ask for help.